So the subject that you proposed earlier was kind of thinking beyond duality in a way. So like
Hmm.
not seeing it as like somebody's more conscious or less conscious, but
Hmm.
seeing it all as the same. Is that kind of what you were talking about?
Yeah, and basically expanding into various, well, maybe even examples. Like
Okay.
like that, for instance, is one example of sort of like the same thing going on.
Yeah.
One of the things that that I've sort of, I want to say, guided to or led to is this place where obviously everyone deserves the same level of respect as we
Mhm.
give ourselves. And I think in this sort of awakening community that we're a part of, there's it's not often seen. There's a lot of sometimes disparaging remarks with some people's discoveries or what some people are focusing on or what some people are just beginning to see when other people are, you know, have already seen it, you know, maybe years ago. And we get into this position
Probably like
where,
spiritual competitiveness almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, perhaps, you know, like how people come into law of attraction who are just getting excited about it, and some people are like, yeah, law of attraction doesn't work. I've tried that even. Have you ever come across that?
No, actually, but I'm like a very isolated person, and I
Okay.
don't like to talk about my beliefs to people unless I know
Hmm.
it's going to be safe.
Okay.
So,
So how would
um,
you tell if it's going to be safe? Are there just lots of signs, or how do you
uh,
know when it's a good time to speak up?
um, I can feel like I have a very highly developed emotional world,
Hmm.
so I can completely feel, and I can also tell. Yeah, I don't know, I just feel it. So.
Hmm.
And that's just from my own experience because I have I have quite a lot of resistance from my one of my parents about
Hmm.
kind of like more esoteric beliefs.
Yeah.
So I can tell when there's like a judgment vibe there happening. So
Yeah.
I try not to talk about it to people who I don't think will be supportive
I
because
think
I'm
I think a lot of people have lots of individuals they wish they could open up to, right?
yeah.
And sometimes it's almost as if people who are not even between the spiritual community, it's almost as if somebody who has something insightful to say that's kind of big world looking does kind of impose on other people who don't explore those ideas. It's almost like,
Mhm.
what, you saying you know things better than me about the world or something?
Mhm.
And that can really sort of tweak people's egos, we'll say. And
Yes.
it's almost like, well, what would you do about it? And are we here to teach people who don't know anything? And I'm actually of the opinion we're not actually here to teach everybody everything that we know, but so much find and support people who are showing the signs that they're looking and they're
Mhm.
asking and they're exploring, and almost find that balance where it's almost like not even giving them too much, like only answer the questions that are being questioned. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I've found most of my balance in just being a question answerer. If if that's clear.
Oh, really? That's interesting because I'm the opposite. Like I'll just channel something and
Hmm.
say it,
Hmm.
and then if somebody asks me questions, I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, I don't even like I don't know how to handle it, like because I'll just channel an idea and
Hmm.
then I'll put it out there and then if somebody asks me a question, I don't know how to I can't explain it in like great scientific detail or whatever they're asking
Right.
for.
Yeah. I've had, I get my, you know, my own versions of insights or downloads and things that I really want to share, and I do, and you know whether, you know, it goes far or not. Um, it's almost like it's not personal. Like I don't make the connection personal with people. Like I don't say I have to tell you something about your life, you know,
Oh,
or I have to
really?
tell you something that's going wrong here. Um, when I've been in that position, and mind you, I've grown up with six brothers, so opinions abound, and I found myself in a position where people thought I was in the position of manipulating them. Actually,
Oh,
like the idea
interesting.
of like, who are you to tell me this? And how did you find out? And why are you bringing this up? And all sorts of
Mm,
things like this. Almost like, hey, you can't just come in here and say these things. At least in
that's
my case.
true. Yeah, you do have to be careful in the way that you say it to people, for
Yeah.
sure.
So,
Super sensitive.
right. So in that way, I resign myself to more like, is there a question that it appears people are asking, and then I could basically get insight about that by empathizing with those who have the question. I can kind of like be where they are, yet not quite be where they are, and sort of sense like the response, even if it's not
Mm,
scientific. And a great deal of the time, it's not scientific, which kind of sucks because sometimes people only listen to science. You know.
yes. Yes, people started taking meditation a lot more seriously once they started having scientific like proof that it worked.
Yeah.
So, and that was
Yeah.
just very recently. So, only very recently have the mainstream started taking meditation seriously
Yeah.
because somebody put money into the studies for
Mhm.
science. And it was mostly, I think, the transcendental meditation people who
Mhm.
had the finances to back it. But, like, I
Yeah.
mean, people have been meditating forever. So,
Yeah.
to only validate it just because somebody with money paid for a study to study, and then we also had the equipment to, like, study brainwaves. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's some things that we can't really quantify scientifically yet because we either don't have the tools or we don't have the money to do it. And it's like that with anything.
Well, especially on subjects that sort of bridge into the unknown, right?
Hmm.
Because when you want to study the unknown, often people want tools in order to measure certain things, and classify and organize and this sort of, this sort of approach, which is very grounding, and I can see why people want to ground it. So in my case, I've had to come to the point where I say this is just what I'm experiencing. Like this is all I can say is that it's very grounded for me, and
Hmm.
I try not to come off as a completely loony character when I'm sharing it because some of these things do excite me, and yet people look at me as like, "What are you talking about? Why would that be exciting to you? Like that has no basis in regular reality." The idea,
Hmm.
for instance, of talking with Pleiadians, which is what I
Hmm.
do, it's like, oh, sounds nice, but it sounds like you should just go write a fictional novel or something,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So I end up in a position, I want to say, semi-regularly where I have insights to share, and I'm not sure how to share them. So I've started a program, right? I have a radio program, and that comes out every week. Comes out weekly, and that's kind of a place where I share kind of what's going on, what's my insights as to things I'm seeing in the world, because a lot of people want to know if like UFO disclosures are going to occur, and I have some inside insight onto these things, so I'll share in those ways in those places. But I'm really interested in the conversation with people who are basically not really spiritual, and that's
Oh,
what I was
yeah.
hoping to
Are we
talk about.
recording right now, by the way?
Yeah, we're recording
Oh,
the whole time.
perfect.
We just basically cut it up whenever we wish.
Oh, nice, nice.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually interesting because that's kind of what my audience is. Mostly because I was in a group of like artists before.
Mhm.
So, and like intellectuals. So I didn't really like when I decided to kind of be really committed to meditation and my spiritual practice, I
Mhm.
didn't really like change friend groups or do anything like that. I just
Mhm.
started talking about all my weird ideas to people who I knew were least likely to absorb them. And
Mhm.
that that actually gave me quite a bit of resilience as well because now I'm used to all the skepticism and I'm used to what it the steps that it takes in order to break through somebody's cynicism and
Mhm.
resistance. So
Mhm.
I notice like I do see people slowly adapting and being open to more ideas, and I see like a phase, like phases to it. So like at first,
Mhm.
like, and I because I also went through the same phase where like first you're kind of like cynical and judgmental towards an idea, and then you kind of start seeing it being valuable to the other person. So when you start seeing it being valuable to the other person, it begins to interest you, and then slowly
Mhm.
like they start to like kind of practice it, like not seriously, but kind of just throw it in there every now and then. And
Mm-hmm.
sooner or later, the person is actually adopting new beliefs that they thought they would never adopt because they've kind of slowly introduced them to their lives.
Right. It's not
So,
a shock to the ego or to the intellect or just a way
yeah.
of thinking too much.
Yeah, and it's hard too, especially for people who consider themselves intellectuals. Like they were, if they were traditionally trained in an institution, like they've invested so much of their time and love and energy into learning a certain way, and if that they don't want to feel like that was a waste of time, I think.
Hmm. Right. Well, that's the point being is that they're grounded in it, I would say. Anything that you spend a lot of time in, you're kind of grounded. It's kind of like a foundation of your identity. It's a foundation
Mhm.
of your choice-based mechanisms in your mind.
Mhm.
So yeah, whenever you shake someone's grounding or shake their core beliefs, it creates large shifting effects.
Mhm.
And and part of the reason for having this conversation is because I think that's kind of happening at this time. Like, I think whether people are spiritual or not, there's some really big questions that are
Yeah.
being asked. And it's becoming only more so. And I keep hearing this from the sun saying, not this idea that I want humans to wake up, but get ready because I'm bringing more and more crazy stuff to your world. Like
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
going to get more interesting. It's going to get more dynamic. It's going to be more energetic based rather than literal based because
What do
when
you mean by
the
energetic
idea that there's
base?
a lot of like momentum, right? You know how like the phases of the moon can affect people's moods? Some people,
Yes.
not all people. It's
Very much
almost
so. I have a moon in Cancer, so I'm like all
all
over
over that,
that.
right? Well, the sun has its own representational influence, and it is also day to day and hour to hour.
Hmm.
But it's basically saying that I'm giving more energetic attention to certain areas of life, areas that we would consider more esoteric or more spiritually, an area of understanding we would call more spiritual.
Yeah.
So, by nature, people are going to wake up in various forms, and they may not have associations as, you know, is this a spiritual understanding or not? They might just say this is just something really weird, or even paranormal in some cases. Like this idea of people having spontaneous, like acid trips without taking any substances, is starting to occur. Where
Oh,
people are having
interesting.
experiences of seeing maybe even a UFO or a ghost, or they see something that doesn't make sense, like
Hmm.
something weird, like somebody dodges a vehicle in a way where they almost like teleport out of the way. Like videos are being caught of this. Weird things like Bigfoot showing up more. There's a lot of things that are like typical, and there's a lot of things that are not typical.
Yeah.
And the thing is that a lot of things like this happen to almost everybody, right? Like they see a UFO or whatever, but then they'll forget about it because there's no integration into life. They don't become like a seeker because of it, right?
Hmm.
They just are like, oh, you know what? Actually, I do recall. I think I did see a UFO once in my life or something. Or I did see something funny that I thought was a ghost. Or I did feel like somebody was touching my the back of my neck and there was nobody there. Or I did feel like I could hear, my partner telepathically, and I don't know how that happened.
Yeah,
Um,
I do that now. I do that with people where I started doing it intuitive, like not even thinking, where I'll respond to their thought that they had. So if I'm in a room with somebody, I know they're thinking something, I'll respond to it. And it's funny how if you do it smoothly enough, they don't actually realize that you responded to their thought. It's
that
so
they didn't
cool.
say it.
Yeah, exactly. But they know
Yeah.
they thought it because it was very real in their conscious mind because they
Mhm.
were thinking it. But yeah, that's kind of fun.
um, I've had times where it's been like that, but keeping with the point of the conversation, or what I was trying to make, the point I was trying to make is that there is a lot more weird stuff coming forward, and this is not just in spiritual esoteric areas. This is causing people to think differently. Like the
Hmm.
idea that like quantum physics is like the new science, but the truth of quantum physics is that no one really knows quantum physics. Like no one really knows the answers. Like no one is a perfect student of quantum physics because even those who study quantum physics, it's still going out on tangents that are continuously difficult to explore and feels entirely conceptual, yet there's no way to pin it down. Like quantum physics just works like this every single time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in
So,
a way. I was thinking about that last night, actually. Like, we only know what's real if it's happening in the present. And even so,
hmm
we only understand it through our own perception. So I
hmm
don't even know that you truly exist
hmm
if once this call ends. I was
right.
thinking about that the other day, and I don't know if you're like, so I think that once we understand how our present mind can influence our past and future, like all of
hmm
these timelines will collapse as
hmm
well.
Yeah, I was actually a big subject that was on my Facebook feed yesterday was a discussion of the Mandela Effect, right? Which is this idea that somehow we're in a different timeline where
Oh,
things are not the
yeah.
same as they were.
Yeah.
Um, and my exploration of the concept of timelines and getting information about timelines, it was great because I said, well, the Mandela Effect is one way that people can get curious, right?
Hmm.
And you don't have to be, you know, overtly spiritual in order to even bother having a discussion on the subject and start exploring what can it mean. You know, why is this, and why do people have these memories of things that are not the way that they are right now?
Hmm.
Um, and it's fantastic because I could have a discussion on timelines and basically explain the Mandela effect. Not that I'm putting that out there, but it's just another way in which seemingly strange experiences can be taken to the next level now because people will, according to the sun and how I'm also feeling as well, people are more easy. It's easier for them to follow these more esoteric lines of thought and sort of like bridge some of the gaps in the ways of understanding things and the ways of looking at things. It's almost like quantum physics is not exclusive to scientists anymore. Like people can start to get into it too and start
Yeah.
to get a better sense of it, especially when scientists say we really don't know anything, right?
Hmm.
You're familiar with the CERN, the collider
No.
machine?
I can talk for like maybe 10 more minutes. I just
Okay.
need to be cautious because there's like guests that are might be coming into this cabin
Okay.
specifically. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a little weird setup, but I have really good Wi-Fi connection here, so it's
Okay.
nice.
Well, anyhow, if anybody's familiar with CERN, they'll understand that it's like considered the highest, most complex scientific experiment for trying to figure out things like quantum science and black
Oh, yes,
holes and this sort
yes.
of thing.
Yeah.
By colliding atoms over miles and miles, things like this. Um, but I guess the point that I really wanted to see and hear what you had to say was um, in the field of understanding that people who are not what we'll call awake in the spiritual or type of community, like we'll call your average person who doesn't explore spiritual concepts at all. I
Hmm.
want to get your insights as do you think or do you feel that people are getting more open in general, like where they
Yes,
weren't like
absolutely.
5 years ago or something,
Oh, for
like they're
sure. Like, I mean, myself included, because I have a lot of friends who don't even really understand how being negative can ruin their life. So, sorry, I'm just distracted for a second. Um,
so just
yeah,
the idea of being positive
it's
somehow is
crazy to
something worth
them.
to give attention to.
Yeah, so I have friends who are slowly kind of, hang on. Yeah, I have friends who are slowly opening up to being happier people. And this isn't because they've practiced anything or read anything. It's just because collectively, as more people are speaking about it openly, it's almost like they have to, because like in order, if they were to stay where they are, it would be really uncomfortable. And so they kind of slowly elevate regardless of whether or not they're open or not, just because they're not comfortable.
hmm It would
So
be sort of like if they didn't, they'd be focusing more on the chaos of uncontrollable experiences.
yeah, and it's like it's people want to be in harmony with with the rest of the world, whether or not they admit that or not. So
hmm
if every I mean there's pitfalls to being ultra positive too. But if everybody is being more positive, then they have to be.
Hmm.
They
I
just,
guess the only way that communication can sort of like go a little further
yeah, yeah,
and
and
interactions can go a little further.
and even yoga and meditation and other spiritual practices. Like if a lot of people are doing it and it's working for them, like maybe they'll try it.
Hmm.
Whereas like 5 years ago, I think that would be a lot less likely for some people.
Yeah. Um,
But there's
so
also, what is that experiment where he actually like quantified the vibration of the planet and how it was like slowly raising with
the
the
Schumann
solar
resonance.
flares? Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the Schumann resonance, from Gaia's perspective, is basically her heart rate. Okay,
Okay,
which
that's a good way of
includes
putting
sort of
it.
like the heart being the energy that pumps out to everything that's alive and makes use of like the oxygen in her blood kind of thing.
Hmm.
So her heart rate basically attunes people to that frequency. So there's a certain we hold the frequency within our bodies as well.
Yes.
And what happens is that when you leave the planet to some degree, like astronauts do, and they're gone for too long, the Schumann resonance can sort of like go away, and and people's own hearts will become more weak. Now, normally it becomes weak because you don't have gravity, and that's what people were assuming. But they're finding out it's more this resonance. So you can actually do a lot of cardio and everything like this, but your heart will still like want to become weak the longer you stay off the planet,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So the Schumann resonance is almost like this idea that you have a partner, that you're in bed with a partner that you can trust, as in the Schumann resonance gives you a sensation that everything is real enough for you. Like you can stand on the ground, that you can have food, that there is fresh air, there is fresh water, that, this world does provide for you in a way that like you feel comfortable having parents raise you as a child. And
Hmm.
so the guy really identifies with that. We're sort of like raising us like her children in a way. And so that Schumann resonance, as she's growing, it's almost like our parents are becoming spiritual in a way, like more spiritual than before. And that is as a byproduct, influencing our growth. As
Mm.
if, this idea that we're coming to understand more about existence as well, simply because like our parent is. And son's kind of like the father in a way, like the son's father, guys like the mother. And they're both exploring and expanding, and by vicarious nature, we are. And so the Schumann
Mm.
resonance is going through its adjustments only because we can measure it to a degree. It's a really, really low heartbeat. Like it's very, very slow. But the thing is, when you observe its heartbeat and what it affects, or what the Schumann resonance affects, it's a spiral element that basically goes off into the micro and the macro infinitely. So everything is kind of like holding itself together because of Schumann resonance in a way.
Are you painting this one too?
No,
Oh, you're just checking it out.
just checking.
Oh, okay.
I had to leave a little bit the other day, so
Oh, okay.
just checking.
Anyhow, in the
Yeah.
stories of people that are humans that say go live on Mars, or out crazy projects where they're not near the Earth, they actually have to make sure that the Schumann resonance is running on their ships. Like it's
Yeah,
actually
that's
pumping up the
interesting
Schumann
because
resonance.
like so the heart gets weaker the further away that you get from Earth. Is that what you're saying?
The further that you don't experience the Schumann resonance, it's a
Oh,
frequency.
okay.
It's a
Okay.
particular vibrational frequency that goes out.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so yeah, basically, we're finding out we're all connected because of that Schumann resonance, but that Schumann resonance also gives us our human distinct nature, which makes
Mhm.
us, and this is the other thing that the Pleiadians point out, is that they can't live on Earth unless they
Mhm.
find a way of acclimating to the Schumann resonance of Earth.
Mm.
So they actually have to manage their way to the Schumann resonance. But the funny thing is the Schumann resonance is changing to actually come into alignment with like Pleiadians that are changing theirs. So it's almost like we're meeting somewhere halfway between a Pleiadian vibration and the Pleiadians meeting a human vibration.
Ooh, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's how you channel is the entity kind of lowers itself so it becomes accessible to you, and
Yeah,
then you hire yourself, or not hire yourself, but you hire your focus of
yeah,
consciousness so that you can connect to it. So,
yeah. So
yeah.
as a result, you can look at history and see that the average IQ has been rising. But in the
Hmm.
past 10 years, children are being born with ridiculous IQs,
Mm.
like a much larger average.
Mm.
And these, some people call these like the star children, things like this, indigo children, whatever. Um, and basically, I'm feeling like at this point, I have incredible faith that everybody's going to basically wake up in some point in time for themselves. I know perhaps a lot of people look at the world and they say, I need to tell you what you need to know in order to, survive this idea that there's crises all around the world, like financial crisis or global terrorism crisis or whatever like this. And this idea that, don't you want to live a happier life and I can tell you how to do this? I think that's really not our job at all. I think everyone's figuring it out. I think everyone's coming to that,
Oh yeah, it's
you know?
true. Like
And
I
it's
find
like,
that I'll do like really preachy rants, and it's like
yeah.
people already know this stuff. So
Yes.
like,
Oh, yeah. Or this idea that, over the past couple of years, people clearly making their own progress. Like people are clearly figuring it out.
hmm.
And what excites me is that originally I thought it would look spiritual, but in fact it is a lot more basic. It's more like I'm just choosing to be happy. I'm gonna stop
True,
thinking about these things. I'm gonna stop
true,
focusing on these things. Like overall, just figuring out that like if I want to be happy, I need to be more me. I need to do more my thing rather
exactly.
than
Yeah,
what the greater society is suggesting. You know what should excite me.
yeah. I
So
know people, or I've met people very recently who don't have any spiritual practices,
mhm,
and through just being able to be authentically themselves, they're more connected as human beings to them, like to themselves in their body and
mhm,
celestially than
mhm,
other people who have
mhm,
really rigid spiritual practices. So I'm
mhm,
starting to realize that like any sort of learning or any sort of
mhm.
meditation or yoga that you do, it doesn't really matter. It's more about loving yourself in your body and however way that you take to get there.
Yeah.
So a lot of people use yoga and meditation to kind of defeat their mind and do some things in their body, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
We're not even learning these things. Like you don't really need to. Yeah.
Yeah, I was raised with my
Sorry, my
parents.
phone is gonna die
Okay.
soon, so maybe yeah.
All right. Well, I was just going to say that I was raised learning meditation from the age of 3, and I've been through many communities that learn about meditation, and I'm finding out that everywhere that I'm going does not require anything besides sort of like the state of mind that meditation can bring you,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Which is a point of trying to be clear, focused, and open, and sensitive.
Mhm.
Whatever sensitive turns out to be in a given situation. But
Hmm.
I very much like chatting with you. Maybe we can do this again.
Yes, definitely. I'm here for a few months, so I have lots of time.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was great to meet you though.
Nice to meet you too. All right, till next time, we'll
Yeah.
network and find something out.
Yeah,
Figure something out.
namaste.
All right. Cheers. Bye bye.